Question 1. Strategic planning requires a proactive and compliant approach to integrating security technologies. A multinational corporation operating in multiple jurisdictions, with a significant physical presence and a diverse workforce, is considering upgrading its comprehensive security infrastructure. The primary goal is to enhance the protection of its assets, personnel, and sensitive information against a range of potential threats, including physical intrusion, theft, and unauthorized access. The company is particularly interested in leveraging advanced CCTV systems, intrusion detection systems, and access control technologies, including biometrics. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of responsible and effective security technology implementation within a framework that emphasizes international best practices and regulatory adherence? Option A. Prioritize the acquisition and deployment of the most advanced and feature-rich CCTV systems available on the market, assuming that superior technology will inherently provide the highest level of security across all operational areas. Option B. Implement the broadest possible coverage with CCTV systems, capturing continuous video feeds from all areas, and establish the longest permissible data retention periods to ensure maximum investigative capability, regardless of specific threat levels or privacy considerations. Option C. Focus primarily on selecting the most cost-effective security technology solution that meet basic security requirements, with minimal emphasis on the specific nature of threats or the detailed privacy implications of their deployment. Option D. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to identify specific security vulnerabilities and threats. Then select CCTV, intrusion detection, and access control systems that directly address these identified risks, coupled with the development and strict adherence to a clear policy outlining the purpose, scope, data retention, and access protocols for all deployed systems, ensuring alignment with privacy regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to identify specific security vulnerabilities and threats, then select CCTV, intrusion detection, and access control systems that directly address these identified risks, coupled with the development and strict adherence to a clear policy outlining the purpose, scope, data retention, and access protocols for all deployed systems, ensuring alignment with privacy regulations and ethical guidelines. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in security management, balancing the need for advanced surveillance capabilities with privacy concerns and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in selecting and implementing CCTV technology that effectively deters and detects threats without infringing upon the rights of individuals or violating applicable laws and industry standards. The requirement to adhere strictly to the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) framework, which implies a focus on international best practices and potentially diverse regulatory landscapes, adds complexity. The decision-maker must navigate the technical capabilities of CCTV, the ethical implications of surveillance, and the legal boundaries that govern its use. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies specific security vulnerabilities and threats, followed by the selection of CCTV systems that directly address these identified risks. This approach prioritizes a needs-based deployment, ensuring that the technology serves a clear security purpose. Crucially, it mandates the development and strict adherence to a clear policy outlining the purpose, scope, data retention, and access protocols for the CCTV system. This policy must align with privacy regulations and ethical guidelines, ensuring that surveillance is conducted responsibly and transparently. This aligns with the ICPS emphasis on professional conduct, risk management, and ethical deployment of security measures. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing CCTV solely based on the latest available technology without a prior risk assessment is an ethically and professionally unsound approach. This technology-first mindset can lead to over-surveillance, unnecessary data collection, and potential misuse of footage, violating privacy principles and potentially contravening data protection laws. Fails to demonstrate a clear security need, making the surveillance potentially unjustified. Deploying CCTV systems with the broadest possible coverage and longest possible data retention periods without considering necessity or proportionality is also problematic. This approach risks excessive data collection, increasing the burden of data management and the potential for breaches. It also raises significant privacy concerns and may exceed legal requirements for data retention, leading to regulatory noncompliance and ethical breaches. Focusing exclusively on the cost-effectiveness of CCTV systems without adequately considering their effectiveness in mitigating identified risks or their compliance with privacy and ethical standards is a flawed strategy. While cost is a factor, it should not supersede the primary objectives of security and legal/ethical compliance. A cheap system that fails to provide adequate security or violates privacy laws is ultimately more costly in terms of liability and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Security professionals must adopt a systematic and ethical approach to technology deployment. This involves 1. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to understand specific threats and vulnerabilities. 2. Defining clear security objectives that the technology is intended to achieve. 3. Selecting technologies that are appropriate and proportionate to the identified risks. 4. Developing and implementing comprehensive policies and procedures that govern the use of technology, including data handling, access, and retention, ensuring compliance with all relevant laws and ethical standards. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating security measures and policies to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory landscapes. Question 2. Research into the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) Code of Ethics and applicable regulatory frameworks reveals a client requesting a protection specialist to monitor the online activities of a former business partner. The client provides vague instructions, stating they want to know what they are up to and gather any information that might be useful. The protection specialist is aware that such monitoring could potentially infringe upon privacy laws and data protection regulations if not conducted within strict legal parameters. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory compliance and professional ethical standards for an ICPS professional? Option A. Proceed with monitoring, but only focus on publicly available information, without confirming the legality or ethicality of this specific client's request. Option B. Engage the client in a detailed discussion to clarify the specific nature of the information sought, the intended use of that information, and to explain the legal and ethical boundaries of online monitoring, proposing a revised, compliant scope of services. Option C. Politely decline the request entirely, citing a general inability to perform such services without further explanation to the client. Option D. Immediately begin monitoring the former business partner's online activities as instructed, assuming the client has the right to such information and that the request is lawful. The correct answer is D. Immediately begin monitoring the former business partner's online activities as instructed, assuming the client has the right to such information and that the request is lawful. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a protection specialist to navigate the complex interplay between client instructions, potential legal liabilities, and the overarching regulatory framework governing their professional conduct. The specialist must exercise sound judgment to ensure that their actions, while fulfilling client needs, do not inadvertently lead to violations of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) Code of Ethics or applicable laws. The core of the challenge lies in balancing client confidentiality and service delivery with the imperative of lawful and ethical operations. Correct approach involves a proactive and documented engagement with the client to clarify the scope of services and ensure all requests align with legal and ethical boundaries. This demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and professional integrity. By seeking explicit confirmation and documenting the client's understanding of limitations, the specialist establishes a clear record of due diligence. This approach is justified by the ICPS Code of Ethics, which mandates adherence to laws and regulations, and emphasizes the importance of clear communication and avoiding actions that could compromise professional standing or expose the client or the specialist to undue risk. It also aligns with the principle of acting with integrity and in the best interests of all parties, which includes ensuring lawful operations. An incorrect approach that involves immediately complying with the client's request without further inquiry or clarification is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for potential legal ramifications and a lack of due diligence in verifying the legality and ethicality of the requested actions. Such an approach could lead to violations of privacy laws, data protection regulations, or other statutes, thereby exposing both the client and the specialist to legal penalties and reputational damage. It also breaches the ICPS Code of Ethics by failing to uphold the highest standards of professional conduct and by potentially engaging in activities that are not lawful. Another incorrect approach, which is to refuse the service outright without attempting to understand the client's underlying needs or offering alternative compliance solutions, is also professionally deficient. While caution is warranted, an outright refusal without exploration can be seen as a failure to adequately serve the client's legitimate needs within ethical and legal bounds. It may also indicate a lack of problem-solving skills and a missed opportunity to educate the client on compliant alternatives, potentially damaging the professional relationship. A third incorrect approach, which is to proceed with the request while assuming it is legal and ethical without any form of verification or documentation, represents a significant lapse in professional responsibility. This passive acceptance of risk is contrary to the proactive stance required by the ICPS Code of Ethics. It fails to acknowledge the specialist's duty to be informed about relevant regulations and to act with a degree of certainty regarding the legality of their actions. This can lead to unintentional violations and a breakdown of trust. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the client's request. Second, assess the request against known legal statutes, regulatory requirements, and the ICPS Code of Ethics. Third, if any ambiguity or potential conflict arises, engage in open and transparent communication with the client to clarify the request and explain any limitations or necessary adjustments. Fourth, document all discussions, agreements, and decisions. Finally, if a request remains non-compliant or ethically questionable, politely and professionally decline, while offering compliant alternatives if feasible. Question 3. The control framework reveals that while the physical security measures at a high-value asset storage facility are generally robust, a recent internal audit identified a recurring pattern of minor procedural deviations in access logging and visitor escort protocols. These deviations, while not resulting in any reported security breaches, are inconsistent with the facility's stated security policy and the overarching compliance requirements of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) Code of Ethics regarding adherence to established security standards. The protection specialist is tasked with recommending the most appropriate course of action to address these findings. Option A. Prioritize the remediation of the identified procedural deviations by updating the access logging system to automate compliance checks and implementing a mandatory digital sign-in for all visitors, regardless of the minor nature of the current issues. Option B. Document the deviations as minor and non-impactful and recommend a review of the security policy to align it with current operational practices, thereby reducing the perceived compliance burden. Option C. Issue a formal warning to all personnel involved, emphasizing the importance of strict adherence to policy, and consider the matter closed pending any future security incidents. Option D. Implement immediate, targeted retraining for all personnel involved in access control and visitor management, focusing on the specific procedural deviations identified, and establish a follow-up audit schedule to verify sustained compliance. The correct answer is D. Implement immediate, targeted retraining for all personnel involved in access control and visitor management, focusing on the specific procedural deviations identified, and establish a follow-up audit schedule to verify sustained compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between operational efficiency and the stringent requirements of regulatory compliance. The protection specialist must balance the need to maintain security posture with the imperative to adhere to established standards and policies, all while operating within the specific legal and ethical framework of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) certification. The complexity arises from interpreting and applying these standards to a dynamic operational environment, ensuring that any deviations are justified and properly documented, and that the audit process itself is conducted with integrity and objectivity. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based assessment of the security controls against the defined standards, coupled with a clear and actionable remediation plan for any identified gaps. This aligns with the ICPS emphasis on robust security auditing and compliance, which mandates a systematic review of security measures to ensure they meet regulatory requirements and internal policies. The ethical obligation is to report findings accurately and to recommend solutions that enhance security without compromising operational effectiveness, thereby upholding the integrity of the protection program and the specialist's professional standing. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate operational needs without addressing the underlying compliance issues would fail to meet the core objectives of a security audit. This would represent a regulatory failure by neglecting to identify and rectify noncompliance, potentially exposing the organization to penalties or security vulnerabilities. Another incorrect approach that involves overlooking minor discrepancies to expedite the audit process would be an ethical failure, as it compromises the thoroughness and objectivity expected of a professional audit. This undermines the credibility of the audit findings and the specialist's commitment to upholding security standards. A third incorrect approach that involves implementing superficial changes to meet audit criteria without addressing the root cause of noncompliance would also be a significant failure, as it creates a false sense of security and fails to achieve sustainable compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic and evidence-driven approach to security auditing. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape, clearly defining audit objectives, gathering objective evidence, analyzing findings against established criteria, and developing practical, risk-based recommendations. The process should be iterative, with a focus on continuous improvement and a commitment to transparency and accountability in reporting. Question 4. Comparative studies suggest that effective protective intelligence operations are built upon a foundation of rigorous threat assessment and proactive vulnerability analysis. A protection specialist is tasked with assessing potential threats to a high-profile executive. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and legally compliant approach to intelligence gathering and analysis within a U.S. regulatory framework? Option A. Systematically gather publicly available information and legally obtain data. Conduct a thorough vulnerability assessment of the executive's routines and environment, and analyze this combined intelligence to identify potential threats and mitigation strategies. Option B. Collect a wide range of data, including sensitive personal information from social media and public records, without establishing clear protocols for data security or retention, prioritizing breadth of information over its legality or relevance. Option C. Employ covert surveillance techniques, including the use of tracking devices and unauthorized access to the executive's personal communications, to gather comprehensive intelligence on all potential threats. Option D. Focus exclusively on identifying known threat actors and their past activities, without conducting a detailed analysis of the executive's specific vulnerabilities or the security of their environment. The correct answer is A. Systematically gather publicly available information and legally obtain data. Conduct a thorough vulnerability assessment of the executive's routines and environment, and analyze this combined intelligence to identify potential threats and mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in protective intelligence, balancing the need for comprehensive threat assessment with the imperative of data protection and information security. The professional challenge lies in navigating the legal and ethical boundaries of intelligence gathering, ensuring that the methods employed are both effective in identifying potential threats and compliant with relevant regulations. The ICPS framework, by its nature, emphasizes a rigorous adherence to legal and ethical standards, particularly concerning the handling of sensitive information. The correct approach involves a systematic and lawful intelligence gathering process that prioritizes the collection of publicly available information and legally obtained data, coupled with a robust vulnerability analysis of the protectee's environment. This approach is justified by the principles of proportionality and necessity inherent in protective intelligence operations. Specifically, it aligns with the ethical obligations of a protection specialist to act within the bounds of the law and to respect individual privacy rights. Regulatory frameworks governing information security and data protection, such as those that might be referenced in a U.S.-based ICPS curriculum, mandate that intelligence collection must be targeted, relevant, and conducted through lawful means, avoiding intrusive or illegal methods. An incorrect approach that relies on unauthorized surveillance or the acquisition of illegally obtained information fails to meet these fundamental legal and ethical requirements. Such actions would violate data protection laws and potentially civil liberties, exposing the protection specialist and their organization to significant legal repercussions and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on threat assessment without a corresponding vulnerability analysis, leaves critical gaps in understanding the actual risk to the protectee. Without assessing vulnerabilities, the intelligence gathered may be theoretical rather than actionable, leading to misallocation of resources and ineffective protective measures. Furthermore, neglecting information security protocols during intelligence gathering, such as failing to secure collected data, creates a significant risk of breaches, which is a direct violation of data protection principles and could lead to the compromise of sensitive intelligence. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the legal and regulatory landscape governing intelligence operations and data handling. Protection specialists must adopt a risk-based approach, continuously evaluating the legality, necessity, and proportionality of their intelligence gathering activities. This includes establishing clear protocols for data collection, storage, and dissemination, ensuring all actions are documented, and seeking legal counsel when in doubt about the permissibility of certain methods. The overarching principle is to gather the necessary intelligence to protect the client while upholding the highest ethical and legal standards. Question 5. The control framework reveals a potential for significant disruption to critical business operations due to a confluence of external threats and internal system vulnerabilities. To effectively manage these risks, which approach best aligns with the principles of comprehensive risk assessment and management for an international certified protection specialist. Option A. Conduct a detailed business impact analysis, BIA, to quantify the potential consequences of disruptions to critical functions and identify recovery time objectives. Option B. Rely on general security awareness training to address potential threats, assuming that a well-informed workforce will inherently mitigate all associated risks. Option C. Focus mitigation efforts primarily on the most frequently reported threats within the industry, irrespective of their specific impact on the organization. Option D. Prioritize the elimination of all identified vulnerabilities, regardless of the likelihood of a threat exploiting them or the potential impact of such an event. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed business impact analysis, BIA, to quantify the potential consequences of disruptions to critical functions and identify recovery time objectives. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a security specialist to move beyond a superficial understanding of threats and vulnerabilities to a comprehensive evaluation of the potential consequences of those threats materializing. The core difficulty lies in quantifying and qualifying the impact on the organization's ability to function, which directly informs the prioritization of risk mitigation efforts. A failure to accurately assess impact can lead to misallocation of resources, leaving critical assets unprotected or overinvesting in the mitigation of minor risks. The correct approach involves a thorough business impact analysis, BIA. This process systematically identifies critical business functions, the resources they depend on, and the potential consequences, financial, operational, reputational, legal, etc. If those functions are disrupted, a BIA directly addresses the ICPS mandate to protect assets and ensure business continuity by providing a data-driven foundation for risk management decisions. It aligns with the principle of prioritizing resources based on the severity of potential harm, a cornerstone of effective risk management. An approach that focuses solely on the likelihood of a threat occurring, without considering the potential impact, is flawed. This oversight fails to acknowledge that a high-probability, low-impact event should not receive the same mitigation priority as a low-probability, high-impact event. This can lead to inefficient resource allocation and a false sense of security. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize mitigation based on the perceived severity of the threat alone, without a structured assessment of vulnerabilities or the potential impact. Threats are external factors. Vulnerabilities are internal weaknesses. Without understanding how a threat might exploit a vulnerability and what the subsequent consequences would be, mitigation efforts are speculative and unlikely to be effective or efficient. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or general industry best practices without a specific organizational context is also professionally unacceptable. While general knowledge is valuable, effective risk management requires a tailored assessment that considers the unique assets, operations, and risk appetite of the specific organization. This lack of specificity can lead to the implementation of irrelevant or insufficient controls. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with asset identification, followed by threat and vulnerability assessment. Crucially, this must be followed by a robust business impact analysis to understand the potential consequences of identified risks. Only then can effective and prioritized risk mitigation strategies be developed and communicated. This systematic approach ensures that resources are allocated where they will have the greatest protective effect, aligning with the ICPS ethical and professional obligations. Question 6. Regulatory review indicates that a protective detail is escorting a principal through a city. During transit, the principal expresses a desire to visit an unscheduled local landmark that is not on the pre-approved route. The advance work for the original route was comprehensive, identifying potential threats and secure ingress/egress points. The detail leader must make an immediate decision regarding the principal's request. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the detail leader? Option A. Politely but firmly decline the principal's request, explaining that the pre-planned route must be adhered to for security reasons, without further investigation into the new location. Option B. Agree to the principal's request without hesitation and immediately direct the driver to proceed to the unscheduled location, assuming the principal's judgment is sound. Option C. Immediately assess the feasibility of the unscheduled stop by consulting with the advance team and driver, evaluating potential risks of the new location based on available intelligence and the immediate environment, and then informing the principal of the decision and any necessary adjustments to the protective posture. Option D. Agree to the principal's request, but instruct the driver to proceed at a significantly reduced speed and with a dispersed protective formation to allow for better observation of the surroundings. The correct answer is C. Immediately assess the feasibility of the unscheduled stop by consulting with the advance team and driver, evaluating potential risks of the new location based on available intelligence and the immediate environment, and then informing the principal of the decision and any necessary adjustments to the protective posture. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent dynamic nature of protective detail operations and the critical need to balance security with operational efficiency and the principal's comfort. The requirement to adapt to unforeseen circumstances while maintaining a robust security posture demands a high degree of situational awareness, proactive planning, and adherence to established protocols. The principal's request introduces a deviation from the pre-planned route, necessitating an immediate and informed decision that prioritizes safety without causing undue disruption or appearing overly rigid. The correct approach involves a systematic assessment of the principal's request against the established threat assessment and advance work. This includes evaluating the feasibility of the new route in terms of ingress/egress, potential choke points, visibility, and the availability of pre-identified safe havens or emergency response resources. It requires consultation with the advance team and potentially the driver to gauge immediate risks and logistical implications. The decision to proceed with the modified route, if deemed safe, should be communicated clearly to the principal, explaining any necessary adjustments to the protective formation or timeline. This approach aligns with the ICPS principles of risk management, adaptability, and maintaining the principal's security and well-being. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the principal's request without any assessment, citing rigid adherence to the pre-planned route. This fails to acknowledge the principal's authority and can lead to resentment or a perception of inflexibility, potentially undermining the trust essential for effective protection. It also ignores the possibility that the principal's request might be driven by a valid, albeit unstated, concern or need. Another incorrect approach would be to blindly agree to the new route without any immediate assessment or consultation with the team. This demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a failure to uphold the primary duty of care. It bypasses critical security checks and could expose the detail to unknown threats or logistical complications, directly contravening the principles of thorough advance work and threat assessment. A third incorrect approach would be to implement the new route with a significantly degraded protective formation or without informing other team members of the change. This creates security vulnerabilities and operational confusion, increasing the risk of an incident. It demonstrates a failure in communication and coordination, which are fundamental to effective protective detail operations. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a rapid yet thorough risk assessment. This includes 1. Understanding the principal's request and intent, 2. Recalling and cross-referencing the established threat assessment and advance work for the original and potential new routes, 3. Consulting with key team members. Advance. Driver for immediate tactical input. 4. Evaluating the feasibility and risks of the proposed deviation. And 5. Making a clear, informed decision that prioritizes the principal's safety while attempting to accommodate their needs where possible, with clear communication to all involved. Question 7. Consider a scenario where a close protection team is tasked with moving a principal through a moderately populated urban environment. During the approach to the vehicle, the team observes a pedestrian loitering near a known observation point overlooking the planned departure route. The pedestrian is not actively engaging with the principal, but appears to be observing the team's movements. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the close protection team? Option A. Confront the pedestrian directly to ascertain their intentions and assess their threat level. Option B. Initiate a discreet counter-surveillance sweep of the area, including the pedestrian's location and potential observation points, while maintaining a heightened state of alert and preparing the principal for immediate departure. Option C. Immediately instruct the principal to proceed directly to the vehicle at an increased pace, assuming the pedestrian is a non-threat due to their lack of direct engagement. Option D. Focus solely on the immediate vicinity of the vehicle and the principal's path to it, disregarding the pedestrian as a potential indicator of a broader surveillance effort. The correct answer is B. Initiate a discreet counter-surveillance sweep of the area, including the pedestrian's location and potential observation points, while maintaining a heightened state of alert and preparing the principal for immediate departure. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent unpredictability of close protection operations and the critical need to maintain situational awareness while executing a planned movement. The primary difficulty lies in balancing the need for proactive threat identification with the operational requirement to maintain a discreet and efficient protective bubble around the principal. A failure in surveillance detection can lead to compromised security, potential harm to the principal, and reputational damage to the protection team. The principle of absolute priority in this context refers to the paramount importance of the principal's safety and security above all other considerations. The correct approach involves a systematic and layered application of surveillance detection techniques, integrated seamlessly into the close protection team's operational tempo. This includes continuous observation of the environment, identification of anomalies, and the use of counter-surveillance measures to confirm or deny potential threats. Regulatory frameworks for close protection, such as those often found in professional body guidelines, e.g., those that might inform an ICPS certification, emphasize proactive threat assessment and the implementation of appropriate countermeasures. Ethical considerations dictate that the protection team must act with diligence and foresight to prevent harm. This approach aligns with the ICP's likely emphasis on maintaining a secure environment through constant vigilance and the application of established protective protocols. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate path of travel without considering potential observation points or the broader environment fails to adhere to the principles of comprehensive surveillance detection. This oversight could allow a hostile actor to establish a surveillance position undetected, compromising the entire operation. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to prioritize the principal's safety. Another incorrect approach that involves an overly aggressive or overt counter-surveillance posture can inadvertently escalate a situation, draw unwanted attention, or even provoke a hostile actor. While counter-surveillance is necessary, its application must be proportionate and discreet, aligning with the goal of maintaining security without creating new threats. This approach could violate guidelines that stress the importance of maintaining a low profile and avoiding unnecessary confrontation. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of movement over thorough environmental assessment risks, overlooking subtle indicators of surveillance. While evasive driving techniques are crucial in certain high-risk scenarios, their effectiveness is diminished if the team is unaware of the threat they are attempting to evade. This approach neglects the foundational element of threat identification, which is a prerequisite for effective evasive action. Professionally, this demonstrates a reactive rather than proactive security mindset, which is contrary to best practices in close protection. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a continuous cycle of intelligence gathering, threat assessment, planning, and execution, with built-in mechanisms for adaptation. This includes 1. Understanding the threat environment and potential adversaries. 2. Conducting thorough route reconnaissance and identifying potential surveillance positions. 3. Integrating surveillance detection and counter-surveillance into the protective details routine. 4. Maintaining constant communication within the team. And 5. Being prepared to adapt the plan based on real-time information and evolving circumstances, always prioritizing the principal's safety. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal that the security team's approach to operational effectiveness is fragmented. Patrols are conducted, but without standardized routes or objectives. Incident response is initiated when events occur, but often lacks clear escalation procedures or consistent communication. Report writing is inconsistent, with varying levels of detail and objectivity. Security awareness training is conducted sporadically. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ICPS best practices for comprehensive security operations? Option A. Implement standardized patrol routes and objectives. Develop a detailed incident response plan with clear escalation and communication protocols. Enforce rigorous and objective report writing standards, and conduct regular, role-specific security awareness training for all personnel. Option B. Prioritize rapid response to all reported incidents, diverting resources from routine patrols to ensure immediate attention to any perceived threat, and document incidents only when significant damage or injury occurs. Option C. Rely on the experience of senior security personnel to guide patrol patterns and incident responses, with report writing being a secondary task performed only when time permits. Option D. Increase the frequency of random patrols to maximize unpredictability and deter potential threats, focusing primarily on visible presence rather than route adherence. The correct answer is A. Implement standardized patrol routes and objectives. Develop a detailed incident response plan with clear escalation and communication protocols. Enforce rigorous and objective report writing standards, and conduct regular, role-specific security awareness training for all personnel. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in security operations, balancing proactive security measures with reactive incident response, all while adhering to established protocols and maintaining accurate documentation. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the security team's actions are not only effective in mitigating immediate threats, but also compliant with the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) standards and any applicable client-specific or regulatory guidelines. The need for a comprehensive and integrated approach to security operations is paramount, requiring careful judgment to prioritize actions and resources. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a structured and documented process for both routine patrols and incident response, directly aligning with ICPS best practices for security operations. This involves clearly defined patrol routes and objectives to ensure comprehensive coverage, a robust incident response plan that outlines immediate actions, escalation procedures, and communication protocols, and meticulous report writing that captures all relevant details accurately and objectively. Furthermore, integrating security awareness training reinforces the importance of vigilance and adherence to protocols among all personnel, contributing to a more secure environment and reducing the likelihood of incidents. This holistic approach ensures accountability, facilitates continuous improvement, and demonstrates a commitment to professional security standards. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that focuses solely on reactive measures without proactive patrols or documented protocols fails to meet the fundamental requirements of comprehensive security management. It neglects the preventative aspect of security, leaving vulnerabilities unaddressed and increasing the risk of incidents. This also leads to inconsistent and potentially incomplete incident response, as there are no established guidelines to follow. An approach that prioritizes patrol efficiency over incident response preparedness is also flawed. While patrols are important for deterrence and early detection, a security team must be equally, if not more, prepared to handle emergencies. Neglecting incident response planning and training leaves the team ill-equipped to manage crises effectively, potentially leading to greater harm or loss. An approach that neglects thorough report writing undermines accountability and learning. Inaccurate or incomplete reports hinder post-incident analysis, making it difficult to identify root causes, improve future responses, or provide evidence if required. This also fails to demonstrate due diligence and adherence to professional documentation standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic and integrated approach to security operations. This involves establishing clear objectives for all security functions, including patrols, incident response and training. A strong emphasis on documented procedures, regular training, and accurate reporting ensures consistency, accountability, and continuous improvement. When faced with operational challenges, professionals should always refer to established protocols and best practices, prioritizing the safety of individuals and assets while ensuring compliance with all relevant regulations and ethical guidelines. The decision-making process should be guided by a risk-based assessment, ensuring that resources are allocated effectively to address the most critical threats and vulnerabilities. Question 9. The investigation demonstrates that a principal, while on an international assignment, suddenly collapses and exhibits signs of cardiac arrest. The protection specialist on site is certified in CPR and advanced first aid. Considering the ICPS regulatory framework and ethical guidelines, which of the following actions best represents the immediate and appropriate response? Option A. Attempt to administer a broad-spectrum antibiotic and pain medication from the principal's personal medical kit, as these are often helpful in sudden medical distress. Option B. Immediately initiate CPR and chest compressions, while simultaneously directing a team member to contact the prearranged International Medical Evacuation Service and the principal's personal physician. Option C. Focus solely on securing the immediate perimeter and awaiting further instructions from the principal's corporate security department before addressing the principal's medical condition. Option D. Wait for the principal to regain consciousness, or for local emergency medical services to arrive before administering any medical intervention, to avoid potential legal complications. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate CPR and chest compressions, while simultaneously directing a team member to contact the prearranged International Medical Evacuation Service and the principal's personal physician. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a critical incident involving a principal requiring immediate medical attention during an overseas assignment. This scenario is professionally challenging due to the inherent unpredictability of medical emergencies, the potential for delayed or inadequate local medical support in a foreign environment, and the paramount responsibility of the protection specialist to ensure the principal's well-being. Careful judgment is required to balance immediate life-saving interventions with the need for professional medical care, while also considering the operational context and potential security implications. The correct approach involves the protection specialist initiating immediate, appropriate first aid and CPR if indicated, while simultaneously activating pre-established emergency medical evacuation protocols and coordinating with the designated medical support team or local emergency services. This is justified by the ICPS ethical framework, which prioritizes the safety and health of the principal above all else. Regulatory guidelines for protection specialists emphasize the need for proactive planning, including the development of comprehensive medical emergency response plans that account for various scenarios, such as those encountered in foreign jurisdictions. This approach ensures that the principal receives timely and effective medical care, leveraging both the specialist's immediate skills and the expertise of professional medical personnel. An incorrect approach of solely relying on the principal's personal medical knowledge or waiting for a definitive diagnosis from local, potentially unfamiliar medical providers before initiating any intervention fails to meet the duty of care. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it delays potentially life-saving measures and demonstrates a lack of preparedness for medical emergencies, which is a core competency for an ICPS. Another incorrect approach of attempting advanced medical procedures beyond the specialist's certified training, without immediate professional medical oversight, poses significant risks and could exacerbate the principal's condition, violating the principle of do no harm and exceeding the scope of practice. A third incorrect approach of prioritizing security concerns over immediate medical needs, such as delaying evacuation due to perceived security risks without a clear and present danger that outweighs the medical urgency, is a critical ethical lapse. The primary mandate is the principal's safety and well-being, which in a medical emergency directly translates to immediate medical intervention and evacuation. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a rapid threat assessment that prioritizes the medical emergency. This includes 1. Assessing the principal's condition and determining the immediate medical needs. 2. Initiating appropriate first aid and life support measures based on training and certification. 3. activating predefined emergency protocols, including communication with the medical support team and initiating evacuation procedures. 4. Continuously monitoring the principal's condition and providing updates to medical professionals. And 5. Ensuring that security measures are integrated with and do not impede the medical response. Question 10. The analysis reveals that a retail establishment has experienced a series of minor internal thefts over the past 6 months. The management is now demanding an immediate upgrade to their security system, specifically requesting the installation of a state-of-the-art biometric access control system for all employee entrances. They believe this will be the most effective solution to deter further theft. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of effective security planning and design, as per the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) framework? Option A. Focus exclusively on enhancing perimeter security by installing additional fencing and motion detectors, assuming that preventing entry is the primary concern for internal theft. Option B. Accept the vendor's proposal for a comprehensive biometric access control system without further site-specific investigation, as their expertise guarantees the best outcome. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive site survey to identify specific vulnerabilities, assess the threat landscape, and then design a layered security approach that may include appropriate access control measures, alongside other deterrence and detection systems, tailored to the identified risks. Option D. Immediately procure and install the requested biometric access control system for all employee entrances, as this is a high-technology solution that will send a strong message to potential offenders. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive site survey to identify specific vulnerabilities, assess the threat landscape, and then design a layered security approach that may include appropriate access control measures, alongside other deterrence and detection systems, tailored to the identified risks. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for enhanced security with the long-term implications of system design and operational effectiveness, all within the strict confines of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) regulatory framework. A rushed or incomplete site survey can lead to critical vulnerabilities being overlooked, resulting in an ineffective security system that fails to meet the organization's needs or comply with relevant standards. The decision-making process must prioritize a systematic, evidence-based approach that integrates technical design with operational realities and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive site survey that meticulously documents existing security measures, identifies potential threats and vulnerabilities, and assesses the physical environment. This survey forms the bedrock for developing a layered security strategy that incorporates appropriate access control systems, perimeter security measures, and surveillance technologies. The design must then be aligned with ICPS best practices and any applicable local regulations, ensuring a holistic and effective security posture. This methodical process ensures that the security plan is robust, proportionate to the identified risks, and compliant with professional standards. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a high-end access control system without a thorough site survey. This fails to address the fundamental need to understand the specific risks and vulnerabilities of the site. It is a reactive measure that may not be appropriate or effective, potentially leading to wasted resources and an incomplete security solution. Such an approach neglects the foundational principles of security planning, which mandate a risk-based assessment prior to system selection. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on perimeter security without considering internal access control. This creates a significant gap in the layered security model, leaving internal assets vulnerable even if the perimeter is breached. Effective security requires a defense-in-depth strategy where multiple layers of security work in concert. Neglecting internal controls undermines the overall integrity of the security system. Finally, relying solely on the vendor's recommendations for system design without independent verification or a thorough site survey is also an incorrect approach. While vendors possess technical expertise, their recommendations may not fully account for the unique operational context, specific threat landscape, or the organization's budgetary constraints. A professional security plan requires independent assessment and design based on a comprehensive understanding of the site and its requirements, not just product capabilities. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough risk assessment and site survey. This should be followed by the development of a conceptual security design, incorporating layered security principles. System selection and detailed design should then proceed based on this foundation, with continuous evaluation against ICPS standards and organizational objectives. Question 11. Stakeholder feedback indicates concerns regarding the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive company data stored on employee personal devices used for work purposes. As an ICPS-certified protection specialist, you are tasked with recommending a strategy to mitigate this risk. Which of the following approaches best aligns with legal and ethical considerations for protection specialists? Option A. Recommend that employees store all sensitive company data exclusively on company-provided secure servers and avoid any access from personal devices, without implementing any monitoring or remote management capabilities on personal devices. Option B. Advise the company to prohibit the use of personal devices for work entirely, thereby eliminating the risk of data breaches originating from personal devices. Option C. Deploy covert surveillance software on all personal devices used for work without employee knowledge to monitor all activities and data access. Option D. Implement a comprehensive Bring Your Own Device (BYOD) policy that requires employees to install specific security software on their personal devices, granting the company the ability to remotely monitor and wipe data if a device is lost or compromised, with clear disclosure to employees about these capabilities. The correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive Bring Your Own Device (BYOD) policy that requires employees to install specific security software on their personal devices, granting the company the ability to remotely monitor and wipe data if a device is lost or compromised, with clear disclosure to employees about these capabilities. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need to protect assets and personnel with the long-term implications of privacy rights and potential legal liabilities. The protection specialist must navigate a complex ethical landscape where perceived threats may not always align with established legal boundaries for surveillance and intervention. Careful judgment is required to avoid overstepping legal authority, which could lead to significant legal repercussions and damage to the organization's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) Code of Ethics and relevant privacy regulations, specifically focusing on the principles of proportionality and necessity in the use of surveillance technology. This approach prioritizes obtaining explicit consent or establishing a clear, legally defensible basis for surveillance, ensuring that any data collected is relevant to the identified security concern and is handled in accordance with data protection laws. The ICPS framework emphasizes ethical decision-making, requiring protection specialists to act with integrity and respect for individual rights, even when faced with perceived security risks. This aligns with the principle that security measures must be lawful and proportionate, avoiding unnecessary intrusion into individuals' privacy. An incorrect approach that involves deploying covert surveillance without a clear legal basis or consent fails to uphold privacy regulations. This action could violate data protection laws, leading to fines and legal action. It also demonstrates a disregard for ethical principles that mandate respect for individual privacy and autonomy. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediate physical intervention based solely on suspicion, without a thorough assessment of the situation and legal justification for the use of force, could result in excessive force claims and liability. This disregards the ICPS guidelines on the lawful and proportionate use of force, which require a clear and present danger and adherence to legal standards. A third incorrect approach, which involves sharing collected surveillance data with unauthorized parties, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and privacy regulations, exposing the organization to significant legal and reputational damage. This violates the ethical obligation to protect sensitive information and maintain client trust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear identification of the security objective. This should be followed by a comprehensive assessment of potential threats, considering both the severity and likelihood of each. Crucially, this assessment must be framed within the context of applicable laws and ethical guidelines, particularly regarding privacy and the use of force. Before implementing any security measure, especially those involving surveillance or potential intervention, professionals must verify its legality and proportionality. Seeking legal counsel when in doubt is a critical step. Documentation of all decisions, justification, and actions taken is essential for accountability and defense. Continuous professional development in legal and ethical standards is also paramount. Question 12. To address the challenge of developing and implementing a comprehensive emergency response plan across multiple diverse facilities, what is the most effective initial step for a protection specialist to take to ensure robust evacuation procedures, shelter-in-place protocols, and reliable communication during emergencies? Option A. Immediately implement a broad-based communication system test across all sites to verify network functionality before developing specific response protocols. Option B. Develop a standardized, generic evacuation plan that can be applied uniformly across all facilities to ensure consistency in response. Option C. Conduct a detailed, site-specific risk assessment for each facility to identify unique hazards and inform the development of tailored response protocols and communication strategies. Option D. Prioritize the creation of a single, overarching shelter-in-place directive that all personnel must follow regardless of the specific emergency scenario. Correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed, site-specific risk assessment for each facility to identify unique hazards and inform the development of tailored response protocols and communication strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a protection specialist to balance immediate life safety with the complex logistical and communication demands of a large-scale, multi-site emergency. The challenge lies in ensuring that the emergency response plan is not only comprehensive on paper, but also practically executable and adaptable in a dynamic, high-stress environment. Effective judgment is crucial to prioritize actions, allocate resources, and maintain clear communication channels under duress, all while adhering to established protocols and regulatory expectations for protection operations. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of the emergency response plan, beginning with a thorough site-specific risk assessment for each facility. This assessment informs the development of tailored evacuation procedures and shelter-in-place protocols, recognizing that different locations may present unique hazards and require distinct responses. Crucially, this approach emphasizes the establishment of redundant, multi-channel communication systems that can function even if primary networks fail. This aligns with the principles of robust emergency preparedness, which mandate proactive planning, clear roles and responsibilities, and the ability to disseminate critical information rapidly and reliably to all stakeholders, including personnel, management, and potentially external emergency services. Adherence to these principles is often a regulatory requirement for organizations operating in sensitive sectors, ensuring a coordinated and effective response to minimize harm and disruption. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on a generic, one-size-fits-all evacuation plan fails to account for the specific vulnerabilities and operational characteristics of each facility. This oversight can lead to ineffective or even dangerous procedures in certain locations, violating the duty of care owed to personnel and potentially contravening regulations that require site-specific safety measures. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes immediate evacuation without establishing clear communication protocols, risks creating chaos and confusion. Without a structured communication strategy, personnel may not receive timely instructions, leading to delayed or uncoordinated movements, increased risk of injury, and an inability to account for all individuals. This failure to establish effective communication channels is a significant breach of emergency response, best practices, and regulatory mandates. Finally, an approach that neglects to integrate shelter-in-place protocols as a viable alternative to evacuation, or fails to define clear triggers for their activation, limits the available response options, and may force personnel into unsafe evacuation routes during immediate threats. This lack of comprehensive planning and adaptability is a critical failure in emergency preparedness. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulatory landscape governing their operations. This involves identifying all applicable laws, industry standards, and organizational policies related to emergency preparedness and response. The next step is a comprehensive risk assessment, tailored to each operational site, to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. Based on this assessment, a layered emergency response plan should be developed, incorporating clear procedures for evacuation, shelter-in-place, and communication. This plan must be regularly reviewed, tested through drills, and updated to reflect changes in the environment or operational context. Effective communication strategies, including redundant systems and clear messaging protocols, are paramount throughout the planning and execution phases. Question 13. The review process indicates that the current threat assessment and management strategy for a high-profile principal is not fully optimized. Considering the ICPS framework's emphasis on proactive, intelligence-led protection and process optimization, which of the following approaches best represents a strategy for enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of the principal's security program? Option A. Investing in the latest available surveillance technology and deploying it across all known principal locations without a prior detailed threat assessment. Option B. Developing a comprehensive security plan based on historical threat data and maintaining it without periodic updates or adjustments for emerging risks. Option C. Implementing a continuous cycle of intelligence gathering, comprehensive threat and vulnerability analysis, development of layered mitigation strategies, and regular performance evaluation with feedback loops for adaptation. Option D. Prioritizing the most restrictive security measures possible to eliminate all potential threats, regardless of the impact on the principal's daily operations or privacy. The correct answer is C. Implementing a continuous cycle of intelligence gathering, comprehensive threat and vulnerability analysis, development of layered mitigation strategies, and regular performance evaluation with feedback loops for adaptation. Explanation. The review process indicates a need to optimize the threat assessment and management strategy for a high-profile principal. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the principal's operational needs with robust security measures, all while adhering to the stringent ethical and regulatory standards of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) framework. The ICPS framework emphasizes a proactive, intelligence-led approach to protection, demanding that practitioners not only identify potential threats, but also develop sustainable, risk-informed mitigation strategies that are proportionate and effective. Challenge lies in moving beyond a reactive stance to a truly optimized, process-driven system that continuously learns and adapts. The correct approach involves a systematic, multi-layered process that begins with comprehensive intelligence gathering and analysis, followed by a detailed vulnerability assessment specific to the principal's lifestyle and operational environment. This informs the development of a layered security plan that incorporates physical security, technical countermeasures, personnel security, and robust contingency planning. Crucially, the optimization aspect means establishing clear metrics for evaluating the effectiveness of these measures, incorporating feedback loops for continuous improvement, and ensuring that all strategies are aligned with the principal's risk tolerance and operational requirements, as mandated by ICPS principles of proportionality and effectiveness. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the acquisition of advanced technology without a thorough threat and vulnerability assessment. This fails to meet ICPS standards because it prioritizes a single solution over a holistic, risk-based strategy, potentially leading to misallocation of resources and overlooking critical human or procedural vulnerabilities. Another incorrect approach is to implement a static security plan that is not regularly reviewed or updated based on evolving threat intelligence or changes in the principal's circumstances. This violates the ICPS principle of dynamic threat management and proactive adaptation, leaving the principal exposed to emerging risks. Finally, an approach that prioritizes inconvenience over security effectiveness, or vice versa, without a clear risk-based justification, demonstrates a failure to achieve the necessary balance and proportionality required by professional protection standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the principal's operational context and risk appetite. This should be followed by a structured threat assessment process, incorporating all source intelligence. Vulnerability assessments should then be conducted to identify weaknesses. Mitigation strategies should be developed based on a hierarchy of controls, prioritizing elimination and substitution where possible, followed by engineering controls, administrative controls, and finally, personal protective equipment. The entire process must be documented, regularly reviewed, and subject to performance metrics to ensure ongoing optimization and compliance with professional and ethical obligations. Question 14. What factors determine the optimal defensive driving techniques and route selection for a protective security detail, considering the dynamic nature of threat intelligence and operational environment? Option A. A comprehensive threat assessment, real-time intelligence integration, and the specific vulnerabilities of the planned route. Option B. The driver's prior experience in similar operational environments, irrespective of current intelligence. Option C. The driver's personal preference for speed and directness in transit. Option D. A predetermined static route plan that minimizes travel time. The correct answer is A. A comprehensive threat assessment, real-time intelligence integration, and the specific vulnerabilities of the planned route. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because protective security driving, particularly convoy operations and route planning, demands a constant balance between operational efficiency, the safety of the principal and team, and adherence to evolving threat intelligence. The dynamic nature of security threats means that pre-planned routes and defensive driving techniques must be adaptable in real time. Failure to accurately assess and integrate these factors can lead to compromised security, increased risk to life, and potential legal or ethical repercussions. The ICPS framework emphasizes a proactive and intelligence-led approach to protective security, making the accurate assessment of these factors paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach is to prioritize a comprehensive threat assessment and intelligence-driven route selection. This involves continuously evaluating current and potential threats to the principal, considering the operational environment, and integrating real-time intelligence updates. Regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines for protection specialists, as embodied by the ICPS, mandate a risk-based approach. This means that all decisions, including route planning and defensive driving strategies, must be directly informed by the assessed level of threat. The selection of routes should aim to minimize exposure to known or suspected threats, utilize secure transit points, and allow for effective defensive driving maneuvers if necessary. This approach aligns with the ICPS principle of maintaining the highest standards of protection through informed and proactive security measures. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing speed and directness over security considerations is an ethically and regulatorily unsound approach. While efficiency is a factor, it must never supersede the safety and security of the principal. This failure to adequately assess risk and integrate threat intelligence directly contravenes the core tenets of protective security and the ICPS mandate. Focusing solely on driver experience without incorporating current threat intelligence or route-specific vulnerabilities is also a significant failure. While experienced drivers are crucial, their skills are most effective when applied within a framework of informed decision-making based on the most up-to-date security picture. Relying on past experience alone, without considering current intelligence, can lead to predictable vulnerabilities and an inability to adapt to new threats. Adopting a static route plan without provisions for real-time adjustments or contingency planning ignores the dynamic nature of security threats. Protective security requires flexibility. A rigid plan that cannot accommodate unexpected events or evolving intelligence is inherently flawed and increases risk, violating the ICPS emphasis on adaptive and responsive security protocols. Professional reasoning. Professionals in protective security driving must employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with a thorough threat and vulnerability assessment. This assessment should inform all subsequent planning, including route selection, vehicle preparation, and the deployment of defensive driving and evasive techniques. Continuous monitoring of intelligence and the operational environment is essential for real-time adaptation. The ICPS framework underscores the importance of a risk management approach, where decisions are justified by the assessed threat level and the need to protect the principal. Professionals should always ask, does this decision demonstrably reduce risk to the principal based on current intelligence and operational realities? Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that while fire detection and suppression systems are present and fire drills are conducted annually, there is no documented process for regularly evaluating the effectiveness of these systems and procedures against current fire safety standards and evolving occupancy risks. Which of the following approaches best addresses this identified gap in fire safety management? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive fire risk assessment that includes a review of system design, installation, maintenance records, evacuation plans, and drill performance, leading to updated recommendations. Option B. Commission a visual inspection of all fire extinguishers and alarm panel indicators to confirm their physical presence and apparent operational status. Option C. Increase the frequency of fire drills to semi-annually to ensure staff familiarity with evacuation routes. Option D. Update the fire safety policy document to state that all fire safety measures are considered compliant until a specific incident occurs. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive fire risk assessment that includes a review of system design, installation, maintenance records, evacuation plans, and drill performance, leading to updated recommendations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a security specialist to balance immediate operational needs with long-term compliance and risk mitigation, specifically concerning fire safety. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulatory framework, which for the ICPS exam is assumed to be a generalized international standard or a representative framework like NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, standards, often adopted or referenced globally in security and safety management. A thorough risk assessment is crucial to identify potential fire hazards, evaluate their likelihood and impact, and determine appropriate preventive and protective measures. This ensures that security protocols are not only reactive, but also proactive, aligning with the principles of due diligence and duty of care expected of a certified protection specialist. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive fire risk assessment. This process systematically identifies fire hazards within the protected premises, evaluates the existing fire detection and suppression systems against relevant standards, e.g., NFPA 101 Life Safety Code, NFPA 72 National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, assesses the adequacy of evacuation procedures and the effectiveness of fire drills, and determines the overall risk level. Based on this assessment, specific recommendations for improvement or mitigation are developed. This aligns with the ethical obligation to protect life and property and the professional responsibility to implement best practices in security and safety management, as often outlined in professional codes of conduct and industry guidelines that emphasize proactive risk management. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the visual appearance of fire safety equipment without verifying its operational status and compliance with standards. This fails to address potential hidden defects or deficiencies that could render the equipment ineffective during an actual emergency. Another incorrect approach is to assume that past successful fire drills guarantee future effectiveness. Drills must be regularly reviewed and updated based on changing building layouts, occupancy, or identified weaknesses. Furthermore, focusing only on the installation of detection systems without considering their maintenance, testing, and integration with suppression systems and evacuation plans represents an incomplete and therefore flawed approach to fire safety management. These approaches neglect the systematic, evidence-based methodology required for effective risk management and compliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic, risk-based approach. This involves 1. Understanding the applicable regulatory framework and standards. 2. Conducting a thorough assessment of existing conditions and potential hazards. 3. Evaluating the effectiveness of current controls and procedures. 4. Identifying gaps and developing prioritized recommendations for improvement. 5. Implementing and continuously monitoring the effectiveness of implemented measures. This iterative process ensures that fire safety and prevention strategies remain relevant, effective, and compliant. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that in the event of a confirmed active shooter incident within a protected facility, a protection specialist's primary objective is to minimize casualties and facilitate an effective law enforcement response. Considering the critical time sensitivity and the need for coordinated action, which of the following approaches best aligns with established International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) protocols for immediate response? Option A. Immediately initiate lockdown procedures for all occupants, securing them in the safest available locations, and establish direct communication with responding law enforcement to provide intelligence and await their tactical direction. Option B. Delay lockdown procedures to gather more definitive intelligence from multiple sources and await explicit instructions from law enforcement before taking any defensive action. Option C. Attempt to locate and confront the active shooter directly to neutralize the threat before law enforcement arrives, utilizing available security personnel and equipment. Option D. Initiate an immediate evacuation of all occupants from the facility to a designated safe zone outside the immediate threat area, without waiting for law enforcement confirmation. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate lockdown procedures for all occupants, securing them in the safest available locations, and establish direct communication with responding law enforcement to provide intelligence and await their tactical direction. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it demands immediate, life-or-death decisions under extreme duress, where the consequences of error are catastrophic. The protection specialist must balance the immediate safety of those under their charge with the critical need for coordinated, effective response by law enforcement. The pressure to act decisively, coupled with the inherent chaos of an active shooter incident, necessitates a pre-established, well-rehearsed protocol that prioritizes clear communication and adherence to established procedures. The correct approach involves initiating lockdown procedures immediately upon credible threat confirmation, securing all occupants within the safest available location, and establishing a clear communication channel with responding law enforcement to provide real-time intelligence and await their directive for evacuation or further action. This aligns with the fundamental principles of protection and security, emphasizing the preservation of life through immediate defensive measures and seamless integration with external emergency services. Specifically, this approach is justified by the International Certified Protection Specialist, ICPS, guidelines which stress the importance of immediate threat mitigation through secure containment and the critical role of coordinated law enforcement engagement as the primary offensive force. The ICPS framework prioritizes the safety of individuals within a protected area by creating a secure environment until law enforcement can neutralize the threat. Initiating an immediate evacuation without confirming law enforcement's tactical advantage or presence is an incorrect approach. This action could prematurely expose vulnerable individuals to the active shooter, potentially increasing casualties and interfering with law enforcement's tactical approach. It violates the principle of coordinated response and the ICPS guideline that emphasizes awaiting law enforcement's lead in direct confrontation scenarios. Attempting to engage the active shooter directly with limited resources and without law enforcement's tactical superiority is also an incorrect approach. While bravery is commendable, the ICPS framework mandates that protection specialists act as force multipliers and facilitators for law enforcement, not as primary combatants in active shooter situations. Such an engagement could result in the specialist becoming a casualty, thereby reducing the overall security posture and potentially hindering law enforcement's efforts. This deviates from the principle of preserving life and ensuring the most effective, coordinated response. Delaying lockdown procedures to gather more information or await definitive confirmation from external sources is another incorrect approach. In an active shooter incident, time is of the essence. The ICPS guidelines stress the importance of rapid threat assessment and immediate implementation of defensive measures. Hesitation can lead to preventable harm and undermines the proactive stance required in such emergencies. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should be guided by a robust, regularly trained active shooter response plan that incorporates the run, hide, fight principles, with a strong emphasis on hide, lockdown, as the initial defensive posture for those under protection. This plan must include clear protocols for immediate lockdown, communication with emergency services, and a defined chain of command for decision-making. Regular drills and tabletop exercises are crucial to ensure all personnel are familiar with their roles and responsibilities, fostering muscle memory and reducing cognitive load during a crisis. The specialist must prioritize the safety of their assigned personnel and assets by creating a secure environment and facilitating a coordinated, professional response from law enforcement. Question 17. Benchmark analysis indicates that a sudden, widespread power outage has severely disrupted operations at a critical infrastructure facility. Emergency generators have failed to activate, and external communication lines are down. The immediate priority is to ensure the safety of all personnel on site and to assess the extent of the disruption. Which of the following actions best aligns with the ICPS framework for crisis management and business continuity? Option A. Immediately initiate the business continuity plan's communication protocol to inform stakeholders and begin recovery efforts, while simultaneously dispatching security teams to assess the perimeter and internal security status. Option B. Begin an ad hoc assessment of the situation, improvising communication methods and recovery steps based on the immediate needs observed, without referencing existing crisis management documentation. Option C. Prioritize the evacuation of all non-essential personnel to a designated safe zone and establish a temporary command post to manage immediate safety concerns before formally activating the business continuity plan. Option D. Focus solely on restoring power to critical systems using available manual overrides and technical expertise, deferring communication and broader recovery until power is stabilized. Correct answer is A. Immediately initiate the business continuity plan's communication protocols to inform stakeholders and begin recovery efforts, while simultaneously dispatching security teams to assess the perimeter and internal security status. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a security specialist to balance immediate operational needs with long-term strategic planning, all while adhering to the stringent requirements of the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) framework. The core difficulty lies in prioritizing resources and actions during a crisis, ensuring that both immediate safety and the organization's continued operation are addressed effectively and compliantly. Careful judgment is required to avoid reactive measures that could compromise future resilience or violate established protocols. The correct approach involves a structured, multi-phased response that integrates immediate emergency actions with a robust business continuity plan. This aligns with ICPS principles emphasizing proactive risk management and comprehensive preparedness. Specifically, it necessitates immediate life safety measures, followed by the activation of predefined communication channels and the deployment of resources outlined in the business continuity plan. This systematic process ensures that the organization can effectively manage the immediate crisis while simultaneously initiating recovery and restoration efforts, thereby minimizing disruption and safeguarding assets and personnel, as mandated by ICPS standards for crisis management and business continuity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate damage control without activating the business continuity plan fails to address the long-term operational impact. This oversight can lead to prolonged downtime, significant financial losses, and reputational damage, all of which are contrary to the ICPS mandate for comprehensive resilience. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes the business continuity plan over immediate life safety, is ethically and regulatorily unacceptable. The paramount concern in any crisis is the well-being of individuals, and neglecting this fundamental principle violates core security ethics and likely contravenes specific ICPS guidelines on emergency response. A third incorrect approach, which involves ad hoc decision-making without referencing established plans, introduces significant risk of inconsistency, inefficiency, and non-compliance. This improvisational method undermines the very purpose of having pre-developed crisis management and business continuity plans, which are designed to provide a clear, repeatable, and compliant framework for action. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with immediate threat assessment and life safety, followed by the systematic activation of the organization's crisis management and business continuity plans. This framework should include clear lines of authority, established communication protocols, and predefined roles and responsibilities. Regular review and testing of these plans are crucial to ensure their effectiveness and compliance with evolving ICPS standards and best practices. Question 18. Risk assessment procedures indicate a need to enhance the organization's security posture through the upgrade of its surveillance capabilities. The current CCTV system is outdated, and there is a growing concern about unauthorized access and potential internal threats. The organization operates within a jurisdiction with stringent data privacy laws and specific guidelines for the use of surveillance technologies. Which of the following approaches best addresses these evolving security needs while ensuring regulatory compliance and operational effectiveness? Option A. Install a state-of-the-art biometric access control system to enhance entry point security without significantly altering the existing CCTV infrastructure. Option B. Deploy a new, high-speed communication system to enable immediate alerts from all security sensors, prioritizing rapid response over data handling protocols. Option C. Implement a comprehensive CCTV system upgrade that prioritizes high-resolution cameras and advanced analytics, ensuring seamless integration with existing intrusion detection and access control systems, and conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment to align with all relevant data retention policies. Option D. Upgrade to the latest high-resolution CCTV cameras with advanced digital zoom features, focusing on maximizing visual detail for incident investigation. The correct answer is C. Implement a comprehensive CCTV system upgrade that prioritizes high-resolution cameras and advanced analytics, ensuring seamless integration with existing intrusion detection and access control systems, and conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment to align with all relevant data retention policies. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in security management, balancing the need for comprehensive surveillance with privacy concerns and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate CCTV system upgrade that not only enhances security effectiveness, but also adheres to the specific legal and ethical frameworks governing surveillance in the relevant jurisdiction. Failure to do so can result in legal penalties, reputational damage, and erosion of trust with stakeholders. The decision requires a deep understanding of the operational risks, the capabilities of various technologies, and the precise requirements of applicable regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes the integration of CCTV systems with existing intrusion detection and access control systems, while explicitly considering data privacy regulations and ensuring compliance with data retention policies. This approach is correct because it adopts a holistic view of security technology integration, recognizing that disparate systems are less effective than interconnected ones. Furthermore, it directly addresses the critical legal and ethical dimensions of surveillance by focusing on privacy and data handling, which are paramount under most regulatory frameworks for protection specialists. This aligns with the principle of proportionality in surveillance, ensuring that the intrusion into privacy is justified by the security benefit and is managed in a legally compliant manner. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on upgrading to the highest resolution cameras without considering integration or privacy implications is incorrect because it neglects crucial aspects of effective and compliant security. This can lead to a system that is technically advanced but operationally inefficient due to lack of integration and legally non-compliant due to privacy oversights. An approach that prioritizes the installation of a standalone, advanced biometric access control system without evaluating its synergy with existing CCTV and intrusion detection systems is incorrect. While biometrics offer strong authentication, their standalone implementation may create security gaps if not integrated into a broader surveillance and response framework. Moreover, it fails to address the comprehensive impact assessment requirement, an approach that advocates for the deployment of advanced communication systems for real-time alerts without a concurrent review of data privacy implications and compliance with data retention laws is incorrect. While rapid communication is vital, it must be conducted within a legal and ethical framework that protects sensitive information and respects privacy rights. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic, risk-based approach to technology selection and implementation. This involves 1. Identifying and assessing all relevant security risks. 2. Evaluating technological solutions based on their ability to mitigate identified risks effectively. 3. Critically analyzing the integration capabilities of proposed technologies with existing security infrastructure. 4. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment with a specific focus on legal and ethical considerations, including privacy, data protection, and compliance with all applicable regulations. 5. Ensuring that any deployed technology adheres to established data retention and management policies. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating security technology strategies to maintain effectiveness and compliance. Question 19. The performance metrics show a significant increase in reported security incidents, yet the Protective Intelligence Unit's threat assessments have not identified any emerging patterns or specific individuals of concern. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ICPS standards for developing effective protective strategies in this context? Option A. Immediately escalate security postures across all protected assets based on the increased incident rate, without further intelligence analysis, to deter any potential future attacks. Option B. Focus intelligence efforts solely on analyzing the technical aspects of the reported incidents to understand how they were executed, assuming the perpetrators are external and unknown. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the incident reports to identify commonalities in timing, location, modus operandi, and victimology, and then correlate these findings with open-source intelligence and existing threat databases to identify potential threat actors and vulnerabilities. Option D. Intensify proactive intelligence gathering efforts by expanding surveillance on individuals exhibiting minor behavioral anomalies and cross-reference their social media activity for any potential links to the reported incidents. The correct answer is D. Intensify proactive intelligence gathering efforts by expanding surveillance on individuals exhibiting minor behavioral anomalies and cross-reference their social media activity for any potential links to the reported incidents. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in the effectiveness of protective intelligence gathering, specifically in identifying emerging threats and assessing vulnerabilities. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of intelligence cycles, threat assessment methodologies, and the legal and ethical boundaries of information acquisition and analysis within the specified regulatory framework. The pressure to demonstrate improved outcomes necessitates a rigorous and compliant approach, rather than a superficial or overly aggressive one. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based methodology for intelligence gathering and analysis, directly aligned with the International Certified Protection Specialist (ICPS) standards and any applicable jurisdictional regulations concerning information collection and privacy. This approach prioritizes the collection of actionable intelligence through legal and ethical means, followed by rigorous analysis to identify patterns, predict potential threats, and assess the likelihood and impact of those threats against protected assets or individuals. Developing protective strategies must then be a direct consequence of this analyzed intelligence, ensuring resources are allocated effectively and proportionally to identified risks. This aligns with the ICPS mandate to provide professional, ethical, and effective protection services. An incorrect approach that relies on speculative or unsubstantiated intelligence would fail to meet the analytical rigor expected of a certified professional. This could lead to misallocation of resources, unnecessary alarm, or even legal repercussions if information is obtained or disseminated improperly. Another incorrect approach might focus solely on reactive measures without a robust proactive intelligence foundation, neglecting the critical step of identifying potential threats before they materialize. This demonstrates a failure to develop comprehensive protective strategies. A third incorrect approach could involve the use of intrusive or illegal surveillance methods, which would not only violate ethical principles, but also contravene specific legal statutes governing information gathering, thereby undermining the credibility and legality of the entire protective operation. Professionals in this field should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining intelligence requirements based on known or suspected threats. This is followed by the selection of appropriate, legal, and ethical intelligence collection methods. The gathered information must then undergo thorough vetting and analysis to assess its reliability, relevance, and potential impact. Finally, protective strategies should be developed and implemented based on the validated intelligence, with continuous review and adaptation as the threat landscape evolves. This structured process ensures that protective measures are informed, proportionate, and legally sound. Question 20. Compliance review shows that a protection team has been tasked with assessing potential threats to a high-profile client. The team has begun monitoring the client's social media activity and news reports for any concerning trends. However, they are also considering accessing the client's personal email account and financial records without explicit consent, believing this will provide more comprehensive intelligence. Additionally, they are collecting and storing all data, including seemingly irrelevant personal details, in an unsecured cloud storage solution. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ICPS principles for protective intelligence, information security, and data protection? Option A. Focus intelligence gathering on publicly available information and open-source intelligence, OSINT, relevant to potential threats, ensuring all collected data is stored securely with access controls and retained only as long as necessary for the protective mission. Option B. Conduct extensive data mining of publicly available sources, collecting all personal information related to the client and their associates, and store this data indefinitely in a secure, encrypted database. Option C. Primarily rely on information provided by the client's disgruntled former employees without independent verification, and store this information in a shared, unencrypted document accessible to all team members. Option D. Access the client's personal email and financial records without consent to gather comprehensive intelligence, and store all collected data, including personal details, in an unsecured cloud storage solution for future reference. The correct answer is A. Focus intelligence gathering on publicly available information and open-source intelligence, OSINT, relevant to potential threats, ensuring all collected data is stored securely with access controls and retained only as long as necessary for the protective mission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the imperative to gather intelligence for protection with the stringent requirements of data protection and information security, particularly within the context of the International Certified Protection Specialist, ICPS framework. The core tension lies in obtaining actionable threat intelligence without infringing upon privacy rights or compromising the integrity of sensitive data. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to ensure that intelligence gathering activities are both effective and compliant. The correct approach involves a systematic process of identifying potential threats by analyzing publicly available information and open-source intelligence, OSINT, relevant to the protected individual or entity. This includes monitoring news, social media, and other unclassified sources for indicators of potential risk. Crucially, this approach prioritizes the use of legally and ethically obtained information, adhering to principles of proportionality and necessity. The justification for this approach is rooted in the ICPS ethical guidelines and relevant data protection principles, which mandate that intelligence gathering must be conducted lawfully, transparently, where appropriate, and with respect for individual privacy. It emphasizes the use of legitimate means to acquire information, thereby minimizing the risk of legal repercussions or reputational damage. An incorrect approach that relies on unauthorized access to private communications or databases is fundamentally flawed. This violates core principles of data protection and information security, as it involves unauthorized data acquisition and potential breaches of confidentiality. Such actions are not only unethical, but also likely contravene various international data protection laws and regulations that the ICPS framework implicitly or explicitly supports. This approach demonstrates a disregard for privacy rights and legal boundaries, leading to severe ethical and legal consequences. Another incorrect approach that involves the indiscriminate collection and retention of personal data without a clear, legitimate purpose is also unacceptable. This fails to adhere to data minimization principles, a cornerstone of data protection. Storing excessive or irrelevant personal data increases the risk of breaches and misuse, and it can be difficult to justify the necessity and proportionality of such extensive data collection under any protective intelligence framework. This approach creates unnecessary liabilities and undermines the credibility of the protective intelligence function. A further incorrect approach that neglects to implement robust information security measures for the collected intelligence is equally problematic. Even if the intelligence is gathered legitimately, failing to secure it properly exposes it to unauthorized access, modification, or disclosure. This directly contravenes information security, best practices, and data protection requirements, which mandate appropriate technical and organizational measures to safeguard sensitive information. A failure in security can render even the most ethically gathered intelligence useless or, worse, harmful. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the protective intelligence objectives, a thorough assessment of the legal and ethical landscape, and the implementation of a risk-based approach. Professionals must prioritize lawful and ethical methods of intelligence gathering, ensuring that all activities are proportionate to the identified threat and respect privacy rights. Continuous training on data protection, information security, and ethical conduct is essential to navigate these complex challenges effectively.